Hey everybody, my name is Nicole Conte and I am the host of the Sweet Success podcast. I am joined with our life coach, Taylor Posey from 4031 Life Coaching and Consulting, and our therapist at the Olive Branch Counseling Center, Miss Erica Wilson. How you doing, girls?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. I feel good today.
Good.
A little bit tired, but
Did you have a good Mother's Day?
Life. I did. Did y'all?
We did.
Something fun. I mean, I ate a little sugar. That was always a good Mother's Day, right?
Yes, it is always.
A little chocolate.
Sugar's always good.
Yeah. Well, today we are talking about a buzzword that I feel like is being thrown around a lot lately, and that's self-care.
Yes.
So I need to know, is self-care going to get my nails done and getting a massage? Like, is that all we're talking here? I'm assuming there's more to this, though, right?
Yes. So I agree with you. I think self-care has become kind of like the popular term for, just doing things for yourself. Growing up, I think I was always taught staying busy was like a good thing. And when I say I was always taught, I think I taught myself that. Like, my parents didn't say, oh, you need to be busy. But in my mind, if I wasn't always doing something or having my time occupied, I felt lazy or I felt like I wasn't being productive. And it has not been until probably these last few years that I've really felt like, oh my goodness, I really do, for my health, for my peace of mind, I do need to take some time for self-care. And like you said, self-care can be a lot of things. I think a lot of people do equate it with, let me go get a mani-pedi, let me get a massage. But it can also mean things just like setting boundaries, saying no to things that you don't have time for, not putting too much on your plate. So self-care is not just, going out and spending money, although that is self-care. Those are nice things. Retail therapy is nice, right?
For sure.
But just taking it kind of to a deeper level and, like I said, just setting boundaries and just making sure that you are in a space to not only take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself well, then it's hard for you to be the person that you need to be for other people. So I know Erica has some different things too on what self-care is, I guess, from a therapist standpoint.
Yeah, for females, we like to think that going out and doing things for ourselves, anything that feels good, that makes us want to, or even time alone where we get that chance to be alone, that's self-care. And it is. So really, self-care is any activity that's going to benefit our mental health, emotional health, physical health, all of those things. It's going to benefit us in those ways.
Right.
And self-care looks different on different days. And there's different types of self-care for different feelings, if that makes sense. So if a self-care day for me after a long week, if my body is telling me, or my mental state and physical state and emotional state is telling me, gosh, I need to rest. So if that self-care day looks like me laid up under my weighted blanket, watching a movie and resting all day, that's self-care.
Right.
Or if it is a day where I have just been stressed out at work all day and I just feel like at the end of the day, you know what? I want to go get my nails done.
Right.
That's doing something for me in that moment.
Right.
So it's very different. And it really is. Self-care can be anything that's going to benefit you in a healthy way, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, any kind of emotion that we're having. It's just going to be an activity that we do to help benefit those needs.
I feel like as moms and just women in society and just there's just so much going on, right? It almost makes us feel guilty to think about taking that time.
For sure.
So if a client's going to come to you and say, hey, like, I know I'm not taking care of myself. I'm pouring everything that I am into my kids, into my husband, into my work, everything, right? Where would you tell them to start when it comes to self-care?
Yeah. Kind of going back to what we talked about too, and I know I've said setting boundaries a couple of times, but for me, it took me setting boundaries and taking things off of my plate to really start my self-care. So like you're saying, in a situation where we do have a client like that has a full-time job, that's a mom, that has a lot going on, it might mean, hey, in what part of my week can I ask maybe someone else or my husband to switch with me to take the kids to practice so that I can have just a few minutes at home. And that's kind of where it started for me, was just I was doing things at church, I was doing stuff at school, and it started by me, giving up leadership of a small group that I had. I started a small group at church and led it for about 3 years. And then luckily I had someone in the group that wanted to take it over. But once I was able to release control of that, I felt so much better.
Right.
Now, that didn't, of course, it wasn't making me feel good every single second of every day, but just knowing that I didn't have that to do and to take that off my plate, I did feel like I had more time for other things. So setting boundaries, saying no to things, it's okay to ask for help, and it's taken me a while to realize that too. But like Erica said, self-care, sometimes it can be going out to eat with a friend or spending money on something, but it could also be just you relaxing at home.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily take money, but just the starting point would be you just really taking a good look at, what does my life look like? What are some things that maybe I do need to cut out, and where can I incorporate some time for myself, whether it's just reading a book or taking a walk, whatever that might look like for your life.
Yeah, and so hearing you say all that makes me think of what self-care is and what self-care isn't. And I actually wrote a couple of things down so our listeners could compare the two. And I'd love to get your input on what you think about the two, because they're different.
Yeah.
What self-care is and what it
Right.
is not. And we've talked about it in previous podcasts. Self-care isn't a selfish act. It is
Right.
just self-care.
Right.
So self-care is a protective approach to avoid becoming overwhelmed.
Right.
So we're wanting to go ahead and do this for ourselves to avoid that overwhelming feeling.
Right.
Self-care is a break, however big or small, from our to-do list. So you talking about taking things off of your plate, that's a huge thing. And we want to take that break, whatever it is, if it's a big thing, if it's a small thing, if we can't do it and we can't add it to everything else that we've been doing,
Right.
it's okay to take a break from it. And it's
Right.
okay to say no. That's a
Right.
huge self-care tip. And self-care is a tool to help you meet your own needs so that you can live a healthy life.
Right.
So again, we can't be the best version of ourselves if we aren't taking care of ourselves.
Right.
So those are the big things that self-care is and what it's for.
Right.
And then what it is not. Self-care is not an emergency response plan for when you're already completely overwhelmed. So if you're already overwhelmed, you're already overstimulated, you're already overworked, that's when I'm mentally exhausted.
Right.
That's more than just self-care. That's when I need to take a couple of days off work. I need to regroup. That's more than just a little bit of the self-care. What we're
Right.
talking about is, hey, I'm feeling a little burnout. I'm getting a little close to where I feel like I need to take a little break or do something for me.
Right.
But when you've already reached that point of being overwhelmed, we're looking at something a little different. And then it's also not something you add to your to-do list.
Right.
So you don't
Okay.
want to think of it as, okay, this week I'm going to go to work, I'm going to go to church, I'm going to go make this meal for this friend, but I'm
Right.
also going to take care of myself.
Right.
So you don't want to think of it as something added to
Right.
doing or adding to your plate. You
Right.
don't want to add something extra for yourself. Self-care is something we should be doing
Right.
on a daily basis or a weekly basis just to check in with ourselves.
Yeah.
And again, self-care isn't selfish. And I do think that we live in a world in our society that makes us feel as though when we take care of ourselves or when we need a moment alone,
Right.
that is looked at as selfish.
Yeah.
And it's really to help us with our mental health, our physical health,
Yep.
and our emotional health.
Yeah,
but
that's
it's
right.
it's something everyone needs to practice.
Right. And again, like you said, it looks different for everybody. What might be self-care for me might be different for you. I know Nicole loves to work out. Once upon a time, I used to run half marathons, but I don't have time anymore. So my self-care is like laying across the bed and watching reality TV.
All right,
just because.
so let's do this. I want to go around in here. So what is
Okay.
your? I want to hear like two of
What is
your
my self-care?
things that you love for self care. Yeah.
So the things that I love for self-care, honestly, are just really laying on the bed, watching TV. And it is mindless TV, as my husband calls it, trash TV.
It's the best.
But I don't have to think about anything.
Right.
Like I can just watch it. So that would be my biggest thing, just kind of laying down and watching something on TV. I like TV.
I do too. I do too. My favorite though is going out in the sun and reading a book. So I actually did that today. Like took about an
Good.
hour. Went out and laid in my little baby pool in the backyard.
Nice.
Or otherwise
Not the baby
redneck
pool.
pool in the backyard. It's fun and it works.
That's
Right.
But I
hilarious.
took an hour to read a book and it rejuvenates me. It
Good.
relaxes me. Like I love it. And
And did you feel better after?
yes.
Yeah.
And I
Good
love to
job.
go walk around Target and TJ Maxx.
And that's a good
Yeah.
time.
And sometimes I spend money and sometimes I don't. So
Yeah.
Right.
both of those could be free ways of
Yeah.
self-care.
I like it.
But, okay, what about you?
I have two very different types of self-care for myself, and kickboxing is one of them. And I think that is what we do all day long, to be able to go and get some physical aggression
Yeah.
out as
Yeah.
far as an outlet. For me, I'm not an aggressive person.
Right.
I really, really enjoy that. But then on the other spectrum, I love to lay down and take a nap.
Yes.
Not
Erica
just-
likes a nap.
Yes, it doesn't matter what time it is. If I feel tired or if I get into that position, we're talking laying down, blanket, pillow.
Everything.
It's a whole
Yes,
nap.
it's not a 30-minute nap, but it is. Those are my two spectrums of self-care,
Yeah.
and it really is. It depends on the day and what I've done, or even the
Yes.
week. So. Like today would have been a day of I didn't have many clients, so I was able to get home early, and then I got to just lay on the couch, watch TV, took a nap, feel better.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
But then there are days after work where I've had a full caseload,
Yeah.
and then I go kickbox.
Yeah.
So it's just very different,
Right.
And
But it's something that you enjoy.
it's something I
It's
enjoy,
stress relieving.
and then afterwards,
Yeah.
you have to feel recharged.
yeah.
I think that's the main goal.
Right. You
Yeah,
feel
and-
refreshed,
and I-
energized.
I think the
Yeah.
whole thing we talk about we talk about different areas of mental health, but we're all about normalizing fill in the blank, right? And
Right.
so today it's normalizing
Yeah,
self-care.
self-care.
Like this should not be something to feel guilty about.
Right.
Everyone should be practicing this.
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
we've talked about it even when I was in the school setting with Taylor. You get days off, you can get vacation days, you can take a sick day or a personal day. But I've always wondered and I know there are other places in the world and maybe even in the U.S. that have mental health days. We will have parents that will say, my kid needed a mental health day. On this side of the field of working in that, I understand that.
Yes.
I understand what a mental health day is and what it looks like. Now, I'm hoping that they're using it appropriately, and when they say, and sometimes when they say that, they just really mean, my kid needed a break today. Or maybe I needed a break today. I didn't feel like getting up and getting 3 kids ready for school, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying they can
Right.
miss school every day.
Right.
There's no way possible that would be a realistic thought for a parent or for kids. But in general, a mental health day is supposed to be for a person who needs that time to recognize about themselves.
Right.
I need a day off. And it's okay to accept that and just say, I'm going to do that today.
Right. I think that's important. Going back to, what we said, what self-care is and what it is not. It definitely should not take away, from your it's not like your self-care should take away from your entire family time. So, if you get home and you shut the door and you never see your family for the entire night,
That's a problem.
I don't know. I mean, now if you and your partner have agreed on, hey, you just take the night, shut the door, whatever, but you just shutting yourself out from the whole world for days and days, it might be to the extreme.
Yeah, and then I think you're thinking like self-care versus self-isolation.
That's right.
Yeah. That's what that sounds like.
But I think some people would say, oh, I was just taking some time for self-care.
Yep.
So just, be mindful of how much I don't think you can have too much self-care if you're using it correctly, but it is also not an invitation for you to just shut out the world and not, have responsibility either.
Have a nice balance.
That's
Right.
right.
All right. Well, we have told you our favorite types of self-care. We'd love to hear what yours are. If you've got something different you want to tell us, just send us a message. Send the girls a message if you've got something you want to hear us talk about. Please let us know. Awesome job. Thanks for the topic of self-care.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Nicole.
thank you.
You have been listening to the Sweet Success Podcast with licensed therapist Erica Wilson and certified life coach Taylor Posey. If you have questions or topics you'd like to have addressed on an upcoming podcast, please message Erica on Facebook at the Olive Branch Counseling Center or Taylor on Facebook at 4031 Life Coaching and Consulting. Spell out 4031. For more information on Erica Wilson and all that she offers, visit theolivebranchcounselingcenter.com. And for more information about Taylor Posey and her services, visit 4031.org. Spell out 4031. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to our next time together. Please subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform.
This podcast is produced by yourpodcastnow.com. Let us produce a podcast for you.